Golden Child wanted my wedding venue, but I took back my life. It was supposed to be a casual barbecue, just a family hangout. You know, the kind where you eat, laugh, and everyone pretends to be nice for the day. Nothing major. I had no idea that what was about to happen would set everything in motion. Out of nowhere, my sister, let's call her the Golden Child, made an announcement. She's pregnant. Great, right? Everyone clapped, congratulated her, all that. But then, she dropped a bombshell. In the middle of the celebration, in front of everyone, she turned to me and asked if I could give her my wedding venue. No warning. Just asked for the venue that my fiancé and I had spent 3 years trying to secure. She said she couldn't plan her wedding and needed a place to have it before the baby came. And just like that, she expected me to hand it over. I'm not gonna lie, I almost lost it. But I didn't. I held my ground. No, I said firmly. But that's when the drama really kicked off. My sister immediately started crying, like, full-on sobbing, and stormed off. It was like watching a kid throw a tantrum. But the real kicker? My mom. She instantly started guilt-tripping me, asking, would it have killed you to let her use it? I couldn't believe what was happening. I was already feeling the pressure, but my mom didn't even let me explain. She went on about how my sister needed it more and how I should just let it go. The nerve. I was mad, but I didn't back down. I stood my ground, even if my family didn't understand. At that moment, I realized something. My sister's whole life had been built on getting whatever she wanted, and my parents never called her out. She was the Golden Child, the one who could do no wrong. And I was the background character in her drama. It's exhausting to be the one always expected to give in. The moment I said no, everything seemed to flip upside down. It wasn't just my sister getting upset. It was my entire family suddenly turning on me. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'd spent months, no, years planning this wedding, and she expected me to just hand over the venue like it was some little thing. When I walked out of the barbecue that day with my fiancé, he was already fuming. And for good reason. We'd been talking about this venue for ages. It was perfect, and I wasn't going to let her ruin it just because she couldn't plan her wedding in time. But my parents? They sided with her, as always. My dad, with his classic line, told me, it doesn't matter where you get married, as long as you marry the right person. Yeah, Dad, but the venue did matter. My venue mattered. Then came my mom's usual guilt trip. She told me, you should be doing this for your sister. She's family. She's pregnant. But what about me? What about my feelings? The years of hard work I'd put into making my day special. The injustice of it all was suffocating. That night, when my sister called, the guilt-tripping continued. She was crying, accusing me of being selfish and of ruining her happiness. All she wanted was for me to do one thing for her, one thing, and I couldn't even do that. I honestly thought for a second that I'd lost it. But I stuck to my guns. I wasn't giving in. I remember calling my mom and telling her how hurt I was. I had tried for so long to make peace with our family dynamics, but every time I tried, it felt like I was invisible. She wasn't on my side then, and she wasn't now. And honestly, it was crushing. When I asked her why she always sided with my sister, she couldn't even look me in the eye. Instead, she started crying and told me how much my sister needed me. She had always said that, hadn't she? But when I really needed them, when it was my day, my turn, nothing. After that, I knew I couldn't keep bending for them anymore. It felt like the universe was crashing down on me in the days that followed. The drama kept piling up, and my fiancé was done being silent about it. He was pissed, and honestly, I didn't blame him. He had seen how much I'd bent over backwards for my family, only to be stabbed in the back. Now, they were trying to take away something I had worked so hard for, something that meant the world to me. And all for what? To give my sister something she didn't deserve. But here's the kicker, my family, the ones who always painted me as the bad guy, weren't the only ones. The moment my sister's best friends started attacking me on social media, I realized just how deep my sister's influence ran. I blocked them all. I didn't care. It was a public spectacle, and I was done with the drama. Then came the egregious move. The worst part. My sister's best friend, someone who knew the exact kind of pain I was going through, decided to take it one step further and egg my car. That's right. They actually egged my car, right outside my apartment, like it was some childish prank. The audacity. The nerve. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. What did I ever do to deserve this treatment? At that point, I was done being the nice, quiet one. I called the police, filed a report, and watched as my neighbor's security footage caught it all. She had seen everything go down. It was almost satisfying to know that the people who were causing all this chaos were finally getting a taste of their own medicine. I wasn't just going to sit back and let this continue. I had to do something. The wedding, my sister's tantrum, the entire mess, was enough. I couldn't let her ruin everything, and I wasn't going to be the pushover anymore. I had put up with her behavior for too long. I called my mom, and of course, she didn't have the guts to apologize. Instead, she blamed me for everything. The lies were endless. According to her, I was ruining the entire family dynamic because I didn't give my sister what she wanted. She couldn't see it. She couldn't see how wrong it was to keep enabling my sister. And that's when I finally realized something. It wasn't just about the venue. It was never about the venue. It was about my family trying to keep me in a corner, trying to force me to remain the one who always says yes, who always gives in. But I wasn't going to be that person anymore. I was caught between a rock and a hard place. My family's expectations had already gotten the best of me, but now, everything was being turned upside down. My sister was relentless, and I felt like I had to be the bigger person, even though it was slowly destroying me inside. She demanded the wedding venue. And honestly, at that point, I was already exhausted. The back and forth, the manipulation, the guilt trips. But no, I wasn't going to let her take away what I had worked for, what I had spent 3 years planning. The text message I received after the fight was just a reminder of everything I had been trying to avoid. My sister, now with a full-on pity party mode, started texting me about how I was being so unfair. She claimed that I should have had her back because we were family, and that a real sister would have given in. At this point, I didn't know how much more of her nonsense I could handle. I snapped. I wasn't going to be bullied into doing something I didn't want to. I hit back with a text that I knew would set her off, but I didn't care anymore. I was tired of being her doormat. I started calling out her past behavior, all the things I had swallowed down for years, trying to keep the peace, trying to be the good sister. But I wasn't her punching bag anymore. I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me into giving up my dream wedding. I reminded her of how she stole my spotlight on my graduation day, how she wore that ridiculously expensive dress, stole my moment, and made sure the attention was all on her. I was done being the quiet one who accepted all the crap she threw at me. No more. My patience had worn thin. My sister's reaction was expected, more crying, more drama. She called me selfish, told me that family should always come first, and how I was ruining her life. She blocked me immediately after sending a tear-filled message about how unfair I was being. But I didn't care. It felt like I was finally standing up for myself after years of letting her walk all over me. And for the first time, it felt good. It felt empowering to not apologize, to not be the one to back down. The text messages, the phone calls, the guilt trips, it was all just too much. I had already been holding my ground, but the pressure kept mounting. It wasn't just my sister now, it felt like the entire family was closing in on me, and I was expected to just give in. At one point, I thought I could get away from it all. My fiancé and I had planned a trip to visit my parents for a quick family holiday. A break from the chaos, a way to de-escalate the situation. I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, a bit of time away from the drama would calm everyone down. So, we packed our bags and made the trek. But when I arrived at the family gathering, it was like walking straight into the lion's den. The moment I stepped through the door, my sister was there, front and center, demanding my attention. She looked me up and down with that familiar smug look, the one that told me exactly what she was about to do. "Hey," she started, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "can we talk about the venue again? Maybe you've had a chance to think about it." I looked around the room, every pair of eyes seemed to be on me, waiting for my answer, like they were all in on some inside joke I wasn't privy to. My parents, the ones who were supposed to back me up, were eerily quiet. No one was defending me. My mom didn't even flinch when my sister said it, she was just waiting for me to cave. But this time, something inside me snapped. No. The answer is still no, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I could feel the eyes on me, my parents' disapproval hanging in the air. My sister, of course, didn't take no for an answer. She launched into her act, playing the victim, pleading with me like I was the one being unreasonable. I tried to stand my ground, but it felt like I was drowning in the suffocating weight of their expectations. My mom chimed in, passive-aggressively telling me how selfish I was being. Your sister's pregnant, and this is all she's asking for, she said, her tone cutting. Is it really that hard to make her happy? You've had your turn. That was the moment I realized how deeply this went. My mom was never going to choose me. No matter what I did, no matter how hard I fought for what was mine, she would always side with my sister, the golden child. Why don't you just let her have it, she continued, you're being so unfair. Your sister's never asked you for anything. I couldn't take it anymore. The emotional exhaustion, the years of being dismissed. I stood up, my face flushed with rage, and I shouted at them. How about you explain to me how, for once, you've actually been there for me? I've been the one who's always given in, always played the role of the good sister while she got away with everything. The room fell silent. My parents were stunned into silence for the first time in ages. My sister, predictably, stormed off, retreating to her room to cry and stir up more drama. But I wasn't backing down. My fiancé, clearly fed up with the entire situation, took my hand and pulled me away from the chaos. Let's just leave. Now. Before this goes any further. We left that night, and I felt a weird mix of relief and guilt. But mostly, I felt stronger than I had in years. For the first time in my life, I had said no, and it felt empowering. I didn't need to sacrifice my happiness for anyone else anymore. Leaving that family gathering was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My fiancé, bless him, knew what was at stake. He knew how deep the roots of my family's manipulation ran and how much pressure I had been under for my entire life. But still, as we pulled out of the driveway, I couldn't shake the weight of it all. It felt like I was walking away from a battlefield, one I hadn't won yet, but one I had started fighting back in. I didn't know if my family would ever see things my way, but I was done compromising for them. I had spent my entire life playing the role of the dutiful daughter, the one who never made waves, who always gave in. But I wasn't that person anymore. I couldn't afford to be. The week that followed was filled with endless texts from my parents. The messages varied from guilt trips to outright attacks. My mom kept telling me how heartbroken my sister was, and how ungrateful I was being for not helping her out. My dad stayed quiet, as usual, but every now and then, his passive-aggressive comments snuck in, always supporting my sister. Then came the final blow. My sister, who had apparently decided that she was done playing the poor, misunderstood pregnant woman, started posting passive-aggressive rants on social media. The posts were subtle at first, little jabs aimed at me, dressed up as cryptic messages about family and loyalty. But it didn't take a genius to see what she was really doing. She was painting me as the villain. I guess some people just don't know how to be a good sister, one post read. Family's supposed to help, right? But not everyone gets it. I could feel the heat rising in my chest as I read it, but I refused to engage. I had spent enough of my life fighting for their approval. I wasn't doing it anymore. But, of course, my mom didn't see it that way. The texts from her didn't stop, and by the end of the week, it became clear that my sister was getting everyone on her side. My brother, who had always been the more neutral one, was now calling me up and asking what the real story was. He told me he heard from Mom that I had humiliated my sister and that I was unfair. I had to explain, again, what had happened, but my brother, surprisingly, was the only one who seemed to understand. "Look, I don't know what's going on between you two, but I know you," he said. "You're not the one causing all this drama." But that didn't make me feel any better. It only reminded me of the painful truth. No matter how much I tried to explain, no matter how many times I had to defend myself, my sister would always find a way to twist the narrative. And then things took a turn for the worse. I came home from work one day to find that my car had been completely vandalized. It wasn't just a little scratch or someone messing with the mirror, no, they had completely torn it apart. The tires were gone, the windows were shattered, and they had spray-painted the worst things on the side of it. It didn't take a genius to figure out who was behind it. My sister's friends, the same ones who had always gotten away with everything, had come for me. I was beyond furious, but I knew that I had to keep it together. I called the police, but they didn't exactly give me much hope. They did the standard protocol, took down the details, and checked the security cameras. Of course, the footage was useless. Faces covered, no usable prints, no clear identification. It was like they had planned it out perfectly. But that wasn't going to stop me. I wasn't going to let my sister get away with this anymore. It wasn't long after my car was destroyed that I got an anonymous call. The voice on the other end didn't say much, just a few words that confirmed my worst fears. My sister was escalating things even further. Apparently, she had arranged for someone to attack me again. I didn't know if it was her or if she had recruited someone else, but it didn't matter. At that point, I had already made my mind up. I wasn't going to let her or anyone else walk all over me anymore. But the call was only the beginning. Less than a week later, I came home from work to find my front door had been shattered, the frame splintered as if someone had kicked it in. My heart pounded as I slowly pushed open the door, gun in hand, ready for whatever was waiting for me inside. It was like walking into a war zone. The apartment was trashed, things were scattered all over the floor, and the smell of smoke lingered in the air. I could hear footsteps coming from upstairs. Someone was definitely here. In the chaos, I'd forgotten to lock my shotgun in its case, and with a rush of adrenaline, I pulled it out of the closet. I made my way upstairs as quietly as I could, expecting the worst. Every step felt like it was echoing, and my pulse was racing. And that's when I heard it. A muffled voice calling my name. I froze. "Don't shoot, it's me," the voice said, just loud enough for me to hear. I felt a chill run down my spine. My heart dropped into my stomach as I realized who it was. It was my sister's voice. I couldn't believe it. After everything that had happened, she was here, in my house, and she was trying to manipulate her way back into my life again. With the shotgun still gripped tightly in my hands, I slowly made my way to the door. I threw it open, ready to confront her. She was standing there, disheveled and frazzled, her face filled with desperation. She looked at me like she had just been caught doing something wrong, but there was no hint of apology in her eyes. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she just stood there, her eyes darting nervously around the room. Then, as if rehearsed, she took a step toward me. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracking. "I was just trying to make things right. I never meant to hurt you." I couldn't even process what she was saying. My hands shook as I stared at her, the weapon still at my side but now useless. "You really thought I would just forgive you after everything you've done?" I spat. "After everything you've put me through? You really think this is how you make things right?" Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. She had crossed the line, and no amount of fake apologies or crocodile tears was going to change what had already happened. Then, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. I turned just in time to see my ex-boyfriend's best friend step into the room. The same guy who had been involved in everything that went down. The one who had tried to burn my house down. The one who had been behind the attack on my car. My heart dropped again as I saw the twisted grin on his face. He had a beer in his hand and was leaning casually against the doorframe. "You know, I thought you'd be smarter than this," he sneered. "But I guess we both know how things go down when you're too stubborn to give in." It was like a switch flipped. In that moment, I knew that nothing had changed. The people in my life who I thought were my family, the ones I trusted, were all out to destroy me. But this time, I wasn't going to take it anymore. I turned on my heel, heading for the phone, ignoring my sister's cries. "You're done. All of you are done." I called the police and started filing reports, detailing everything. The vandalism. The threats. The manipulation. The way they had come into my life and tried to tear it apart. When the cops arrived, they were able to arrest both of them on the spot. It didn't take much. My sister's best friend had already been wanted for multiple charges, and he was still in the middle of some shady dealings. As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, I finally breathed a little easier. It was over. Or so I thought. The aftermath wasn't immediate peace, but for the first time, I felt like I had control again. I wasn't going to let anyone take advantage of me anymore. This wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. About finally standing up for myself and taking back what had been stolen from me for so long. Even though the arrest brought a sense of justice, I knew there was still a long road ahead. What I hadn't expected was just how deep the betrayal went, and the damage it had done to me. But one thing was for sure, I wasn't backing down anymore. The days following the police arrest felt like a blur. I was emotionally drained, the weight of everything that had happened bearing down on me. My sister was behind bars, but the damage was far from over. I didn't just lose a sibling, I lost the illusion of family, the one that I'd been desperately clinging to for years. My parents still didn't understand what had happened. They didn't know how to process the fact that their golden child had fallen from grace. They called me every few days, telling me how terrible it was for everyone involved, but I wasn't interested in listening to their hollow words. The truth hit me harder with every passing day, my family had never been my ally. They were all so caught up in their warped idea of what family should look like that they couldn't even see how much they had hurt me. The constant favoritism, the favoritism that I had put up with my entire life, had finally caught up with me. My sister had always been the golden child. I never had a chance. I had spent years trying to get her approval, trying to be accepted, but it was clear now that I had been nothing more than a pawn in their twisted game. My mom's guilt-tripping, my dad's passive indifference, it all made sense now. They never really saw me for who I was. To them, I was just a placeholder, a convenient backdrop for my sister's perfect life. And even though I had won this battle, my heart was still heavy. It wasn't just about what they had done to me, it was about what they had done to my niece and nephew. My sister's mistakes were impacting them in ways I couldn't imagine. I'd seen their tears, heard their cries as they were dragged out of my life by a family who had never cared enough to protect them. I had always known I wanted to protect them. But now, I needed to step up. I was determined to be the guardian they deserved, the one person who would fight for them when no one else would. It wasn't long before the phone call came. It was from CPS. My heart raced as I picked up the phone, dreading what they would say next. But this time, it was good news. They're safe. We've moved them into foster care for now, but we're looking into possible options for placement, the social worker told me. We know you've been a part of their life. And we think that you might be their best option. I could barely process the words as they sank in. I had just been handed a lifeline. The kids, my little heartbeats, were going to be okay. The legal battles for custody started immediately. It was never going to be easy, and it wasn't going to happen overnight. My sister, even locked up, was fighting me every step of the way. But I was ready. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the weak one. I wasn't the one who had been manipulated, abandoned, or ignored. I was the one in control, and I was going to fight until my last breath for the children who were counting on me. As the weeks passed, I continued to press forward. I worked tirelessly with my lawyer, gathering every piece of evidence I could, anything to ensure that my sister would never regain custody of those kids. She had no business raising them. Not after everything she had done. But the fight was draining. I hadn't realized how much emotional energy I had been putting into this fight. Every step felt like I was taking on a mountain of pressure. But as I went through the motions of paperwork, court appearances, and more phone calls, I found that the exhaustion began to push me to my breaking point. And that's when I realized something: I couldn't do this alone anymore. I had to find a way to take care of myself through all of this. My fiancé was still there, standing by my side. But this wasn't just about him being supportive, he was my rock, the one person who truly understood the weight of what I was going through. When I would come home exhausted from work or court, he would make me a cup of tea, sit me down, and just listen. He would hold me while I cried about how much I hated the whole situation, about how much I wanted to walk away from it all. But he never let me quit. "You're stronger than this. You've already come so far. You're doing this for them," he would remind me. "And I'm with you every step of the way." His unwavering support was like a salve for my emotional wounds. He was the light I needed when I felt like I was drowning in darkness. It wasn't just about the kids anymore, it was about us. About the future we were building, and how we would have to navigate this together. This was more than a relationship, this was a partnership. And we were both committed to making sure that no matter what, we would create the life we both wanted, for ourselves and for the kids. As the custody battle dragged on, the weeks turned into months. There were moments where I doubted myself, where I questioned whether I was making the right decisions. The pressure was intense, and every step forward seemed to be followed by 2 steps back. But then, something unexpected happened. I received a letter from the court. It was an official document. I opened it, my hands shaking, and my breath caught in my chest when I saw the words, "We are pleased to inform you that custody has been granted." I couldn't believe it. After everything, after all the pain and manipulation, I had done it. My niece and nephew were coming home. They were mine to protect, to care for, to raise as my own. The first time they came to my home, their little faces lit up with joy, and my heart swelled with love. I knew that we still had a long way to go, healing would take time, but we would do it together. As I watched my niece and nephew settle into their new lives with me, I realized that this wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about revenge or what my sister had done to me. This was about the future, about the lives of 2 innocent children who had been caught in the middle of a toxic family dynamic, a family that had never truly cared for them the way they deserved. I was determined to give them something different. At first, it was small things. I wanted them to feel safe, loved, and cared for. I turned one of the spare rooms into a bedroom for my niece, decorated with posters of her favorite cartoon characters and soft, fluffy bedding. For my nephew, I put up a basketball hoop in the living room and filled his closet with clothes that fit properly. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was more than what they had before. But the emotional healing was a longer, slower process. Every time they would ask about their mom, it felt like a knife to my chest. I never told them the truth. I didn't have to. They were too young to understand why she had chosen to abandon them, why she'd left them in my care. But I knew that deep down, they felt the pain of her absence. They missed her, even if they didn't say it out loud. And that broke me. It took time, months, even years, for them to begin opening up to me. They slowly started trusting me, telling me stories about their life before they came to live with me. The nights spent crying, not understanding why their mom wasn't there. The long silences at dinner, the loneliness. I listened, holding their little hands, telling them that I would never leave them. That I would always be there. The first time my niece said she loved me, it hit me like a ton of bricks. She'd been through so much, and yet, she still found a way to love. I was doing this right. I was giving them what they needed, unconditional love. I had promised myself that I would protect them. I wasn't just going to be their guardian, I was going to be their family. But even though I had made progress, there were still lingering issues. The pain my nephew carried from his earlier life was evident. He had trouble trusting people, and every time someone raised their voice, he would flinch. My niece, on the other hand, became very protective of him. They leaned on each other in ways I hadn't anticipated. But I was determined to help them work through it, one step at a time. And then, there was the court case. My ex, even though he was nowhere near the picture, had tried to get involved. He had been trying to undermine everything I had worked for, making false accusations about me. He knew how to push buttons, how to manipulate people to get what he wanted. But this time, I wasn't the vulnerable woman I had been before. This time, I was ready. The case went to court, and we were back in that same, uncomfortable courtroom where everything had started. My ex, sitting there like the snake he was, made his accusations about how I was unfit to raise the kids. He painted a picture of me as some cold, unloving aunt who was using them for some personal gain. But I had everything I needed to shut him down. The letter from the court granting me custody, the photos, the testimonies from people who knew the truth about what had happened. I was prepared. This wasn't going to be like before. When the judge called for a recess, I stepped outside to take a breath. My knees were shaking from the pressure, but I wasn't backing down. I knew the truth. I knew that I was the best thing for my niece and nephew. And nothing was going to take that away from me. Months later, things started to settle. The kids were thriving. My niece was finally starting to smile more, her laugh ringing through the house like it used to before everything fell apart. My nephew, still quiet and reserved, was opening up. He was starting to talk more, share his thoughts, and even ask about his future. The future I was now shaping for him. And in the process, I began to heal too. I had spent so much time focused on everyone else, making sure they were okay, that I had forgotten to take care of myself. But now, I had the space to do that. I went back to therapy, worked on my own personal growth, and even started going out more. I had friends who stuck by me through everything, and my relationship with them grew stronger. I began to see the world in a different light. I didn't need the approval of my family anymore. I had the love and support of my fiancé, my friends, and, most importantly, my niece and nephew. They were my family now, and that was all that mattered. But there were still days where the past would hit me like a wave. I'd be sitting with my niece and nephew, watching them play together, and suddenly, I'd remember how close I had come to losing them. How close I had come to giving up on my dream of being their protector. The guilt would creep in, but I fought it. I couldn't change the past. All I could do was move forward, creating the future I wanted with the people I loved. Now, here I am, sitting in my living room with my fiancé, my niece, and nephew playing nearby. It's a quiet evening, but it's peaceful. It's the kind of life I never thought I would have, the kind of life I never thought I deserved. But I fought for it. I fought for them. And I will keep fighting. Because no one, not my sister, not anyone, is ever going to tear my family apart again. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. For the first time in my life, I finally feel like I'm living for myself and the people who matter most. And nothing at all, will ever take that away from me. Stay tuned for the final chapter of this journey, where I share the lessons learned, the hurdles overcome, and the promise I made to myself that I would never again let anyone dictate my worth.